There's an important truth many men fail to recognize about what truly attracts and keeps a woman's attention. It's not about displaying money. It's not about reciting accomplishments. It's not even about being the funniest or most charismatic man in the room. What separates the men who genuinely ignite a woman's interest from the ones who are simply tolerated is something much more subtle and much more powerful. It's the ability to make her feel deeply understood instead of merely noticed. It's knowing how to ask questions that go beyond the repetitive conversations she's exhausted from having. It's realizing that attraction grows when you create an environment where she feels safe enough to reveal who she truly is. Before we go deeper into this, pause for a moment and think carefully about your last few conversations with a woman you genuinely liked. Not only what you said, but how the interaction actually felt. Did it feel alive, like something meaningful was developing? Or did it feel like both of you were just following some invisible script without even realizing it? Because most men don't fail from lack of effort. They fail because they stay focused on surface-level interaction, while the real connection is happening underneath, in a place they never reach. And here's the uncomfortable reality. If your conversations feel predictable, she already knows where they're headed. And once a woman can predict you, she stops feeling emotionally engaged by you. Now picture something different. Imagine sitting with her and instead of trying to impress her, you create a moment where she forgets everything else around her. A moment where she pauses, not because she has nothing to say, but because what you asked made her genuinely feel something. That's the shift. That's the moment where attention becomes curiosity, and curiosity slowly turns into emotional investment. And ask yourself honestly, when was the last time someone looked at you and asked something that made you feel truly understood? Not judged, not evaluated, understood. Because once you realize how powerful that feeling is, you start understanding what women are truly craving underneath all the noise. My name's Emily Carter, host of the Female Game YouTube channel, and what I'm about to share with you is not about tricks, pickup lines, or manipulation. It's about understanding the deeper psychology behind connection in a way most men never take the time to learn. Because once you understand this, something changes. You stop chasing attention, and you begin becoming the kind of presence people naturally gravitate toward. Think about what most women experience every day. They are constantly noticed, but very rarely understood. People comment on their looks, their style, their vibe. They get compliments, attention, approaches. But here's what most men fail to see. Being noticed is not the same thing as being truly seen. In fact, after a while, constantly being noticed without being understood becomes emotionally exhausting. It creates a quiet kind of fatigue, because when every interaction feels identical, when every conversation follows the same shallow pattern, she starts disconnecting before the conversation even truly begins. And this is exactly why so many men get categorized so quickly. Not because they don't have value, but because they communicate in a way that blends into the background. They ask the same safe questions. They tell the same predictable stories. They focus on presenting a polished version of themselves, instead of creating room for something real to unfold. And without realizing it, they become forgettable. Not because they actually are forgettable, but because their presence never creates a feeling worth remembering. But every now and then, something different happens. She meets someone who doesn't rush to fill every silence, someone who doesn't try to impress her in the first few minutes, someone who asks a question that makes her stop, reflect, and feel. That small pause, that moment where her mind shifts out of autopilot, is where genuine intrigue begins. That's where emotional tension develops naturally, without pressure. That's where she becomes fully present in a way she didn't expect. You see, attraction works on two levels simultaneously, physical and psychological. And while most men focus almost entirely on the physical side, the psychological side is what creates depth, emotional pull, and lasting memory. A woman doesn't just become attracted to a man's appearance or what he owns. She becomes drawn to how she feels in his presence, whether she feels emotionally safe expressing herself, whether she feels curious about him. And here's where it becomes even more interesting. The human brain remembers emotional experiences, not information. So when a conversation makes her feel something meaningful, even if she can't fully explain it, that feeling stays with her. It lingers. It replays later when she's alone. And that's where attraction quietly deepens beneath the surface, without anything obvious happening externally. Think about that for a second. It means the goal is not to say more. The goal is to say what actually matters. Not to impress, but to connect. Not to perform, but to create emotional space. And the most powerful way to do that is through the right questions. Not random questions, not forced questions. Intentional questions that open emotional doors she normally keeps closed around most people. Because when you ask a meaningful question, you're not simply starting a conversation. You're creating an experience. You're showing that you're present, aware, and genuinely interested in understanding her beneath the surface. And that is rare, far rarer than confidence, humor, or status. Now let's talk about what usually happens instead. Most men approach conversations like presentations. They talk about what they do, where they've been, what they've accomplished, And there's nothing wrong with that, but when that becomes the main focus, the interaction turns into a subtle performance, and performance creates distance. While you're trying to show her who you are, she's still wondering how it actually feels to be around you, and those are two completely different things. I once worked with a man who couldn't understand why none of his conversations ever developed into anything meaningful. He was successful, articulate, even funny sometimes, but every interaction ended the same way: polite interest followed by emotional distance. And when we broke it down, the problem became obvious. He was doing everything correctly on the surface, but nothing that created emotional depth. So I told him to try something different. Instead of focusing on what to say about himself, I told him to focus on discovering something about her, not in a forced way, but in a calm, genuinely curious way. The next time he met someone, he asked her a simple question she didn't expect, and immediately something shifted. The conversation slowed down, she opened up more, she became more emotionally present, and afterwards she told him something that surprised him. She said, "I don't know what it is, but talking to you feels different." That's what you're learning here, not a script, but a shift. Now, the 7 questions you're about to understand are not magic lines. They only work when your intention is genuine. If you ask them just to provoke a reaction, she'll sense it immediately. But if you ask because you sincerely want to understand her, something powerful happens. She relaxes, her guard lowers, and she begins associating you with the feeling of being understood. The first question sounds simple on the surface, but reveals a lot underneath. You ask her, "What's something you strongly believed a few years ago that you no longer believe now?" And then you stop talking. Because this question does something most questions never do. It invites reflection. It pulls her out of the present moment and into her own personal growth. It gives her the opportunity to explore how she's changed, what she's learned, and how life has shaped her. And when someone speaks about their personal evolution, they naturally become more emotionally open. She may talk about relationships that changed her perspective, beliefs about herself she eventually outgrew, or moments where life challenged her in unexpected ways. And while she's speaking, something subtle happens. She's no longer just answering a question, she's sharing part of her journey. And this is where most men make a mistake. They interrupt. They quickly redirect the conversation back to themselves. They break the emotional flow. But if you stay present, if you let her finish speaking, if you allow a few seconds of silence after her words, she feels heard in a way she rarely experiences. That silence isn't awkward, it's powerful. Now think about what that creates. In a world where everyone is trying to seem interesting, you become the person who makes her interesting, and that changes everything. Let me ask you something. How many people in your own life genuinely listen without simply waiting for their turn to speak? Probably not many, and the same is true for her. So when you become that rare presence, even briefly, it leaves an impression that extends far beyond the conversation itself. The second question goes even deeper emotionally. You ask her, "When do you feel most like yourself?" This question completely bypasses surface-level identity. It doesn't ask what she does. It asks who she becomes when she's not trying to be anything for anyone else. And that's an incredibly powerful space to explore. Her answer might be something simple like peaceful mornings with coffee, being in nature, or creating something she loves. Or it may be something deeper like meaningful conversations, helping other people, or feeling completely at peace with herself. And while she answers, something important happens. She reconnects emotionally with that feeling. And because you guided her there, she subconsciously associates that emotional state with you. That's how attraction quietly built, not through force, but through emotional association. And here's how you deepen it even more. Instead of rushing to another question, you stay with her answer. You gently explore it further. You might say, "What is it about that moment that makes you feel that way?" And suddenly the conversation becomes even deeper. This is what most people rarely experience, a conversation that actually unfolds naturally, instead of jumping mechanically from one topic to another. And if you pay attention, you'll notice something else too. She starts asking you questions back, not out of politeness, but from genuine curiosity. Because when someone feels truly seen, they naturally want to see you in return. So ask yourself again, are your conversations creating this type of experience, or are they staying trapped on the surface where nothing meaningful sticks? Because in the next part, we go even deeper into the remaining questions, the ones that uncover hidden desires, reveal emotional patterns, and create a level of connection most people never experience. And once you understand how to use them correctly, you won't just keep someone's attention, you'll become unforgettable.